Recording has started. We will save off the webinar later on. We will do the work needed to ADA comply this, do the transcription, and it will be posted within the next couple of weeks. Again, I am Lisa Ireland with the Student Information Office, and we're going to get started. So first, I want to start with our tribal land acknowledgement today. I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial and who still inhabit the area today. I'm presenting to you today from the Indigenous people of the Squally-Apsh or Nisqually tribe. If you would like to put in the chat where you're joining us from, we honor you and encourage you to do so. You're not required to, though. So I want you to meet the presenters. First, I'm very happy to introduce Lisa Fish. She's the OSPI CTE Course Equivalency Project Coordinator. That's a big title for a lot of important information. And again, I'm Lisa Ireland. I'm the CEDARS Data Manager with the Student Information Office. I'll be your moderator today. We're going to count on Lisa Fish to bring some amazing information to us. Please, as we move through here, I think we've got this in here planned for today. Well, I'm going to go back a moment. We are recording this. This is Thursday, April 20th. It's our statewide webinar about CTE equivalency. We are going to use the Q&A for our questions and answers. We will try and take a peek here and there at the chat, but primarily using that Q&A that allows us to focus on what's at hand. Lisa may have a couple items to drop into the chat, but that will be later on in our session. And we should have plenty of time at the end to respond to your questions. I don't have anything else to add. Do you, Lisa, or should we get going?
Well, I was going to just introduce myself really quick, just give you a little background on me and what I've done in the past. I've been at OSPI for about 4 years now, but before coming to OSPI, I worked for Todd Beamer High School in Federal Way, and I was a CTE teacher. But before I was a CTE teacher, I worked in the front office and did academic counseling. So what I do want to say is all the data managers out there are just actually wonderful. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to the data managers at Todd Beamer. And again, you cannot replace your data manager. So thank you for joining today. Our plan for the day, our agenda, is to first just give you some basic information about course equivalencies and our state requirements. What I really want to talk about is the reporting, the required reporting of the course equivalencies through CEDARS. I'm going to show you some sample school district data, how we can correct some errors that I see on my end, and then also how we can correct them is be working with your CTE directors. And then finally, questions and feedback. So I think we're ready.
Thank you very much. Off we go. Oops.
Okay, first I just want to explain what a course equivalency is. So a CTE course equivalencies are courses that a student takes that allows them, a CTE course that allows them also to learn course standards and then actually get the credit for the course standards. So there's two different types. There's a local course equivalencies and there's statewide course equivalencies. Local course equivalencies is where CTE teacher, CTE director, they develop equivalency frameworks. They're developed locally, they're approved locally, it's all at the school district level. Then we also have state course equivalencies. Statewide course equivalencies are developed at the state level, where we have a team of CTE teachers, content teachers, school districts, CTE teachers from school districts, but also at OSPI. We work together with industry partners and we develop statewide frameworks. And that is a statewide framework. A statewide has different components to it, but the main thing is if a statewide framework is offered, the student should get the academic credit for that. So next slide. One thing I wanted to talk about equivalencies is that this visual you see is everybody involved in statewide equivalencies. And I feel like probably has a lot of programs. There's a lot of people, different people involved. But I'll start with the CTE department. The CTE department is heavily involved in CTE courses. It's CTE department from OSPI and also CTE departments at your school districts. We also have the academic content teachers and the leads at OSPI and at the school districts. We have counselors, graduation pathways. We have staff working from school districts and OSPI. We have industry partners that come in, and we have our post-secondary, our colleges that we work with. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with our CEDARS. If a course if a class is transcribed as a cater, so I'm sure you know all about that. But one of the pieces I want to talk to you now is the school district piece. So the school district piece is equivalencies need to be approved, not just through OSPI on statewide, but also through the school district. Once that happens, this is the important piece. You guys are a very important piece to the puzzle. So the student information system is where it's reported back to OSPI, but also what goes on the transcript for the student. So that is everybody involved with equivalencies, and you can just see how many people are involved. Next slide. So I want to talk about IRCs and what is our policy on equivalencies. Back in 2019, a policy was passed, an RCW was passed that said September 1st, 2021, every school district must offer at least one statewide equivalency. And then that statewide equivalency must be offered for academic credit. So in this RCW, it also had another RCW attached to it that OSPI back to makes a legislative report back to the legislators. So this is the main reason when we first started pulling data on equivalencies, because every September I get the data pull and I get all the data that goes with the equivalencies. Next. Now we're at the piece where you would be involved in the reporting piece back to OSPI. So districts decide and identify the type of equivalencies that's applied to the equivalency. And I'll give you an example, and I use this example a lot. It's residential carpentry. So if a course like residential carpentry, it is a statewide equivalency. So what type of equivalency credit goes with it? Well, first of all, what's identified is a statewide equivalency. The second is the type, and it would be a geometry credit. So those are the two pieces of reporting, data reporting that we need at OSPI. So as you can see on the screen, I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Course catalog file D, element D12 is where it's reported if it's a statewide or local equivalency. Element D13 is a type of equivalency. Next. So I took this screenshot from the CEDARS manual, and this is the element D12. Again, value A is statewide equivalencies, value B is local equivalencies, and C is no equivalency. Next. Again, this screenshot I took from the CEDARS manual. And so this is the type of equivalency. And you can see from the list, it goes from Algebra 1 all the way down. I think our last one on there is world language. I will tell you the history of equivalencies. When equivalencies first started, it was only for the math, ELA, and science subject areas. Now it involves all subject areas that are graduation requirements. So this last year, I worked with Lisa. Lisa and I worked together, and we created a few more values added that you could assign other equivalencies than just the three main ones. So next. Now it's time to look at the data. So as I mentioned before, in September is when I get the data file. And when I get the data file, it's huge. It's a very big, large data file. And I go and I massage it. So what you see on the screen now, and you won't be able to see all the details written, but what I do is I color code. I put in the blue lines are state equivalencies. And that's a state equivalency based on our state equivalency list. So the white lines are your local equivalencies based on the correct local equivalency designation. If you see anything red, it means that it's an error. So what you see now, and I'm going to go to the next screen. You might be able to read it a little better. What I did here is I just made it larger, so hopefully you can see what was on the screen. So one of the things I go through is I'm looking, the first red line, if you go across, it's publishing, is the zip code. So that's the number that's attached to the course, is publishing. The school titled the course newspaper. They assigned the course equivalency code as being a statewide course equivalency. So when I go through, I mark which one's state. And because that is not blue, because I've already marked them, it would be a local equivalency if it's an equivalency. So therefore, it was reported as a state, but we don't have a state equivalency in it. So I marked it as an error. If you go down to the next line, it's textiles and apparel. Again, same type of situation where it was reported as a state equivalency, but we don't have a state equivalency in textiles and apparel. So again, that's an error. I will say though, we just got textiles and apparel approved for a state equivalency. So that particular school district, they actually can probably keep it as a 1 now, or report it as a state equivalency because it is. But just because we have a state equivalency also means that school district would have to follow the framework that we put together. Again, we put a team of people together to create the statewide framework. So the teachers and the CTE director, they would have to use that particular framework for it to be a statewide equivalency. I want to go down to the next red blocks that you see. That is Foods and Related Culinary Arts Foundation, and it's marked as a 1 statewide. This is a little bit trickier because you look at the zip code, and that's not one of our zip codes for a statewide equivalency. But we do have statewide equivalencies in food and culinary arts. So this is one that might need a little more digging. It might be like, okay, I see that's an error, but why is that an error? And maybe it's just the wrong zip code that's input for the course. So those are kind of some things you can look at, and you can determine, should I report it as a local equivalency? Is this a state equivalency, but I'm just using a different zip code? So it's something that you would want to talk to your CTE director about. Next. Okay. So now we are going to talk a little bit about correcting the errors. And I mentioned it a little bit before, but here's a few steps that you can take. When you get your data, if you request your data from me, I can send it to you. But you want to know, are you reporting your equivalencies correctly? And I will say, if you looked at that chart where there's so many people involved in equivalencies, right? That what do you do? Like for me, when I see an error in equivalencies, I could call the CTE director. But the CTE director, if they're new, they might not know what was prior to them getting there, what was reported as a state equivalency or a local equivalency or any equivalency. But this is the piece where CTE directors and data managers should be working very closely together. But a lot of times, no one even knows there might be an error. So this is where if you can send me an email, I will contact you. I can send the data to you, or you can also look in the EDS system. And we'll get into that just a little bit. So the first thing is, are you reporting your equivalencies accurately? And if you have a red highlighted code, then what does that mean? Does that mean it's a local equivalency, not a statewide? Does it mean that it's a wrong zip code or a different zip code? So there'd just be a little bit of investigation into if that course is actually an equivalency and what type. Again, you would work very closely with your CTE director and just to clarify the equivalency reporting that you're doing. Okay, next. So this is the part into CEDARS where I don't really have access to this, but I think you do, and Lisa can talk to this. But districts should review their data periodically, and there is a report within CEDARS where you can view this. I will tell you the districts I've worked with in the past about, reporting their errors or, finding out why there's an error reported. I get my report once a year. I get it in September. So the last few years, I send emails, I make calls and to see if the data can be corrected. The thing is, I never see and know if that has happened until the following year. So every September I get a new report, then I can see the new data that's come. But if you can, again, take a look at your data, see if there is an error and correct it, then by the time I get it in September, I wouldn't see any of the red blocks, or I would not create those for you. Next. So Lisa, can you help on this one?
I will be happy to do so. Thank you so much. So currently in CEDARS, we have one area that you can look at to review the equivalencies being reported. We recognize that there's a desire for some additional enhanced reports. We're hoping over the next year or so we can do that. But currently, if you have access to CEDARS, which you log into through EDS, it's what we call that green screen login, the secure login. You would click on CEDARS. You would navigate to reports. Then you click on records loaded. Sometimes, depending on the size of your screen, records loaded might be hidden over to the far right-hand side, or it wraps around. We have enough reports in here. This is a great feature when you click on records loaded. You select the school year that you wish to review what you submitted. You drop down to course catalog file D. As Lisa indicated, that's where we submit that equivalency information. Show extended, that's important. Say yes, because when you click on continue or search, this will produce a report that shows all courses submitted with all of the information regarding equivalencies, and if they're state or local information will be, so that you don't have to do a little bit of filtering in there, but you can look at all the courses and make sure that the data is being submitted accurately. If you don't show extended, it shows a much smaller group of data, so you might get a little frustrated when you can't find all the pieces you need. Another place to look, and I didn't include a snapshot in here, and that's my apologies. If you don't see a course you're pretty sure you're submitting, I would go to your CEDARS submissions or submission exceptions and look to see if something occurred that prevented that record from loading accurately into course catalog. And as always, if you need some help navigating through this system or looking at submission exceptions, you can reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to assist you with this. And I'll provide my contact information at the end of the slide deck. It does look like we have a couple of questions in Q&A. Do you want to go ahead and finish and then we'll go to them, or do you want to look at those right now?
I will take a quick look and see.
Okay.
I did put a couple things in the chat. What I put in the chat is a list of our statewide equivalencies. And I gave that to you so it's easy to find. If you scroll down, you'll see all the statewide equivalencies and what the equivalent course subject is. So I wanted to give you that. The other item I put in the chat is just the link to our ledge reports. So if you ever want to go and look at one of the reports that we've done on equivalencies, you can just scroll down and look for the equivalency ledge report. So
okay, Lisa, can I tell you real quick?
Yes.
You put that in the link. You'll have to say to everybody, because it looks like the links went to hosts and panelists and not to everybody, but I'll see if I can copy those. I can select, whoops, nope, it's not gonna let me do that for you. Let me
Well,
see if I can. Here we go. Let me see if I can do this.
I didn't even realize that's what I did.
That's okay. So
Sorry
let me
about-
see if I, no, I'm seeing if I can drop that in here for you. So that first link was the list of the statewide courses and equivalencies, correct? Yep, it says it's coming through now. So let me see if I can grab the other one and drop that in there for you. It's actually the hidden link. We were testing you to see if you could find the hidden link. It's our story and we're sticking with it, right?
Yes.
Challenges of doing these webinars when we're working remotely. There you go. Okay, those links are in there now. You should be able to see those. Thank you for letting us know. Not the first time it's happened. Okay, and Tony, if you're not seeing the tab called Records Loaded, you need to make sure that you're assigned the CEDARS District Administrator role. We had that question before from people, and they had the CEDARS District User role, which doesn't provide that. So it's a CEDARS District Admin, or I believe the Report Viewer role should give you access to that. And again, our contact information will be at the end of the webinar. And if you continue to have difficulties, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll see what I can do to help you navigate these.
Okay, I'm looking at the Q&A and I am ready to answer. So
Perfect.
the first one from Nancy. Does this mean every district must offer a course as a statewide equivalency framework? Yes, that's what that means. What I do is I actually, in that data, I merge a couple of our data spreadsheets together. I merge our enrollment report from CTE with the equivalency report. And then I get to see which districts are not reporting a statewide equivalency. In most cases, and I will say, I will call a district up and I will say, you know, you're not offering a statewide equivalency. And there could be reasons why. One of the reasons why is they really are offering the course, but they didn't realize that the state law was in place. And so really it's really guidance that I give. I never call up and say, you didn't do this, you need to, you know, really it's us working together. And if let's say computer science is a great example. There's so many computer science equivalencies out there that usually a school district has some type of computer science course that is an equivalency. That is just one example of that. But yes, if you are wondering if you have a statewide equivalency and if you need to get one, again, you can email me anytime. I will be happy to look at your data and let you know what I find. I will let you know though, if there's a school district that's under 2,000 students, there is a waiver. So if you have under 2,000 students, there's a waiver form on our website. So if you go to that same link where the list of equivalencies were, there's also a list of resource documents there, and you can pull the resource documents up and there is a waiver there. So that's just an FYI if you want to pull the waiver and you have less than 2,000 students. Okay. So let's see the next question. Oh, do students all earn both credit for the CTE course and the equivalency credit if the course is only offered for a trimester? Okay, great questions. Okay, so a course would be 1 credit, a choice. Do you use it for the CTE credit or do you use it for the equivalency credit? That's the initial look. But as always, there's another policy, and it's called a 2-for-1 policy out there. You know, not a lot of school districts, or I should say not a lot, some school districts may not know this. And I will tell you, when I was working in a school district, I didn't realize this, but it's called a 2-for-1 policy. So if your school is using the 2-for-1, they don't have to use a 2-for-1 policy, but if they are using the 2-for-1 policy, it can go for, you earn 1 credit, but it can check 2 graduation boxes. So hopefully that answered that. If there's questions, keep asking questions because I'm hoping I'm answering the question with my response. The second part of this question talks about trimester credits. So we also have guidance on that same web page for equivalencies that talks about trimester schools and hours for that framework. Our frameworks are usually 180 hours for a comprehensive high school. At skill centers, there's usually 540 hours. So we use that as a base on the frameworks. But say, for example, if our framework says 180, but you're a trimester school, like Kay is talking about, there is guidance. So basically what we say is, if it's 1 credit, if you use 2 trimesters, and that would equal 1 credit, that's what we would need for the equivalency. So I hope that answered the question.
Lisa, can you tell us, is there guidance anywhere about that 2 for 1? And if memory serves me, they would get credit for taking the course. You know, if they don't split the credit, if there's an equivalency and they use the credit for the equivalency part, they would also get credit for meeting a specific requirement. They don't get to use the credit in both areas, correct?
So yes, I do have guidance. I'll try to pull it up and put it in the chat, and everybody in the chat, not just the host in the panel. But yes, they don't get 2 credits for the 1 course. So they take 1 course, and so the question is, do you want it for the equivalency credit, or does the student want it for the CTE credit? So the credit is on the transcript as the academic credit, let's say. Like, we'll go back to residential carpentry, 180 hours. It is on the transcript as geometry. But a counselor can say, oh, that student took residential carpentry. I'm going to check the graduation requirement for geometry, and I'm going to check off the box for CTE. So it's not 2 credits, it is 1 credit, but it checks 2 graduation requirements. This right now is only high school, correct? These are high school credits. With CTE, there may be some courses at the middle school, but it has to be STEM. And right now we don't have any middle school course equivalencies that I know of. We do have robotics. Robotics might be in the middle school. So it depends if they're using that framework, but mostly it's all high school.
Thank you. Are we ready to, oh, we have one more question, or would you like to hold these until we go to the end? That's up to you. We have plenty of time.
Let's wait to the end, because at the end, what I will do at the end is I'll put in some documents. I don't have them up right now, but I can find them fairly quickly, and I'll put them in the chat so you have them. Okay. We're almost to the end.
Okay.
So I would say one of the next steps would be, if you would like me to share my data with you, if you could email me. What I do then is I will take only your school district's data, and I will email you the school district data, and I can analyze it with you. Like, I can pull out some things, and I can tell you this is reported incorrectly, or what ways can we change it. If I see that you don't have any statewide equivalency, but you're reporting local equivalencies, we'll see if we can, and work with your CTE director, can this be an equivalency, a statewide equivalency? So we will work together on all the data. I just appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to go in and look and work with CTE directors, and we can just kind of clean up the data. And the reason I need to do that is because I report to the legislative report. So. Okay, I think that might be all. Yeah, the only one thing I want to add is with the data that I get. I will tell you, like, I've been here at OSPI for almost 4 years, and I continually add to the data. So one of the first things, when I got the data, I thought, and I'll go back to computer science. Computer science can be a math equivalency or a science equivalency, but the data that I originally was getting didn't show me that. So that was one aspect that I added. So I'm like, you know what? We really need to know what type of equivalency this is. I also take that data, and some of the things that we use that data for too is we want to see how many students are using these equivalencies. We don't know it's actually on the transcript, but I can see what school districts are offering. So if one thing, I'll give you an example, soil chemistry. Soil chemistry is not a course that is used throughout the state, but it is a very important state equivalency because it is for rural small schools. They're the ones that requested that equivalency, and it really serves a great purpose for the small rural schools. So again, we use the data not just to report, we use it now to determine what equivalencies do we need. We also then this last year, I put in demographic information. So now I can do a lot more with the demographics. We can use pivot tables to pull out the data we want. So anyway, the data is very important. And I just, again, I want to thank you guys all for helping me and helping report the equivalencies. I'm gonna look and see if there is any more. Oh, thank you, Tanya. Tanya just threw the 2-for-1 policy in the chat. I am going to go to the Q&As and see what else we have.
Yep, you've gotten quite a few questions in here. And just a reminder, there was a few questions thrown into the chat. It's much easier if you could copy and paste those into the Q&A, as both Lisa and I have access to that, and we can review those as we move on. And thank you. And there was also a request for our contact information. We will post that when we're done with the Q&A, and we'll leave it up for a minute or two for you.
So I'm just going to go with the top one. I'm starting with Nancy. Do you need a specific policy in place? The policy would be what Tanya put in if you guys see her link. But what you would want to do is talk to your principal or superintendent and make sure that that is approved. One thing I think that's very important is equity. So if you use a 2-for-1 policy, and how you use it, is it being used equitable? So that would be one thing I would make sure. So when someone is, when a school district is offering one of the perks of the 2-for-1 policy, I would just make sure it's equitable. Next, K, our new CTE courses are only going to be offered for a single trimester for 90 hours for half a credit. So then they would not be able to get a statewide equivalency. That is true. That is true. If a statewide equivalency is for 1 credit, you would not. But I will tell you, we do have family health. Family health is a half a credit, 90 hours. And so you could do the family health credit. What I would say, comprehensive high schools, if they're offering, again, I'll go back to residential carpentry or computer science, if they're offered by semester or trimester, and it's one, like computer science 1 and then computer science 2, that could be your equivalency. You could be using that one framework for 180 hours or the 120 hours, whatever your trimester hours are. You could use that as a state equivalency, as long as the student is in there. So that's the way that would work. You would give, if you're transcribing that semester, you could transcribe the half credit and then transcribe the other half credit. Is the CTE tutoring policy only for courses with state equivalencies? I think that I read somewhere it is any CTE course. Yes, it doesn't have to be just statewide equivalencies. Yes. Can it be used for non-CTE courses? Well, I would ask, and I thank you for the example. I was just going to ask for the example. A course that counts for PE and art, can it count for both? I would have to read the policy again to make sure. So I would read the policy first. But if I recall, I think the answer is yes. But again, I don't want to say that definite yet until I read it again.
Yeah, I don't know that we have information regarding non-CTE courses unless possibly it's a block class that might offer the curriculum or rigor of both. And correct me if I'm wrong, in my basic understanding, Lisa, of the CTE equivalency is that CTE course has the frameworks that ensures that the math or science or ELA or world languages curriculum or rigor or instruction are part of the instruction of that course. Therefore, that's why you can offer that equivalency, correct?
Yes, so, and thank you for that. And at the local level, this can be done, but at the statewide level, I will tell you, it's not just an easy approval. What happens is during the equivalency process, the creation of a statewide equivalency, we, like I said, we bring in people from all area to develop the framework. It is not easy. It took us 2 to 3 years to get fire sciences complete and approved by Superintendent Reichel. So the process is not just like, oh, just like a couple months. The process is could be 1 year to 3 years or longer. So part of the process is developing the framework, which is the base of the course. But within that, in each unit, we assign learning standards. And that wouldn't be, if I was a CTE teacher, I just don't get to go say, oh, I do that. Oh, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do that one. What we do is we work very closely with the academic content team, and we assign the standards. And I can tell you, we have gone back and forth, and I will give you science as an example. We will work with a science teacher at the school district level, and then we will assign standards. Then it goes to within OSPI, we'll pass it to our academic lead in that area. Let's just say science again. Science will come back, and this happens all the time. They'll come back and they'll say, I don't understand how you're assigning this standard. I don't see this standard being taught in this course. So what happens then is that we go back, it goes back and forth, and it could go back and forth for months. So we go back to the teachers that teach it, and we're like, okay, where are you teaching this standard? So then the teachers will say, oh, I teach it when we do this performance assessment, or we do this, and this is how it's taught. So that conversation goes back and forth. And that's why there's rigor behind the statewide equivalencies. It's not an easy, oh, we worked on this, it's approved. It goes back and forth until everybody is comfortable with the standards assigned to the course. When it gets to that point, the framework goes up for public comment. There's 2 weeks of public comment where I get emails about the framework. We then take it back to the teachers that created it, along with the content teachers that worked on the framework, and we make adjustments. So all that takes place before it becomes a statewide equivalency. I hope I answered that. So do teachers have to be endorsed and certified in both subject areas of the equivalency? So, for example, if my Core Plus construction class, which counts for CTE, also has a geometry and BES, would the teacher have to be teaching that? So, certification for CTE teachers is based on the V code. So, if you go to the OSPI website and go to CTE, and there's a zip code chart which lists all the courses, the codes, the CTE course code is the zip code, and then the course title. In that chart is V codes. V codes will tell you if a teacher is certified to teach that course. So in order for me to teach a course, I just can't. I went to school in business. I was in industry for several years. I did not go to school to become a teacher, but I took all business classes. I was in business for 20 years. Can I teach carpentry? No, I don't have that V code. But I can teach classes that I am certified to teach, and it goes by the V code. So when a teacher submits their certification, what happens is that V code gets looked at and is just not given. You have to have credentials behind it to get the V code to teach the course. So let's see, are middle schools able to offer local course equivalencies? So that would be, is it credit varying? So if you're in a middle school, does that get high school credit? That would be the first question. And I will tell you, CTE courses at the middle school level are not Perkins funded. And if you want a middle school course to be an equivalency, I would actually probably fill out a form and we can discuss it at OSPI. Right now, if the course is not a credit bearing course at the middle school, it probably would not be an equivalency. If it is credit bearing at the middle school, then we could look at it. So,
And just real quick, one that you saw skip, somebody indicated that Tanya had provided that link. It was actually just the RCW. There wasn't a link attached to that. Folks will just have to copy that or write it down and look that up. There wasn't a physical link to that,
okay.
which is fine. Folks can Google that.
Yeah. Okay, keep going with the questions. I wish I had time so I could input some of these. I have a frequently asked question document and the 2-for-1 policy document that talks about the differences between dual credit. So I do have those, and I will put them in at the end, or if Lisa has a better idea, I can email them out, but I will do that at the very end. I do have some documents to share on that.
Awesome.
Okay. So the training resource replace brand new to the school districts that need to work on CEDARS. That might be a Lisa question.
Yes, I was going to say, and thank you for that. We don't have specific welcome to CEDARS type training. We are more than happy to connect with you, provide resources. We have Zoom office hours. We have trainings online. If you have staff that are new and it would benefit you for us to kind of connect, you know, for some one-on-one training or something, reach out to me. And as always, if you identify a need, possibly at the start of the new school year, we could focus a statewide webinar on resources and tips and tricks for those new coordinators. And again, we partner together very well, and I'm more than happy to reach out to my partners who are probably way smarter than I am, such as Lisa and everybody else, and can get resources from them or invite them to participate. So again, my apologies. There's not any specific new coordinator trainings, but we will hook you up with all the right resources, the Zoom office hours, the webinars, and different things, and do our best to assist you, and just let us know what you need.
Okay, so next question. The 2-for-1 policy doesn't have to be a full credit. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full credit, but I will say if a student takes a 180-hour course or the full course, you would give that full credit on the transcript because they took the full credit. You're checking the box part of the 2-for-1 policy would be where you could do the half a credit. So I would make sure that the student did get the full credit wise, but I would use the half a credit as the box check. And I say that, but I'm thinking now, what if the half credit needed is for the academic credit? So I still would give a full academic credit and then check the half a credit. So hopefully I answered that correctly. As long as that student gets the credit that they deserve on the transcript, then you check the box. It could be a half a credit. Okay. And then I see that Tanya put in the link. So that was the next.
Yes,
item.
thank you, Tanya.
Yes, thank you so much. Can there be one and one equivalency for? Can there be? I think it's question. Can there be more than one equivalency for a CTE course? So I'll say, for example, again, I'll go back to computer science. Computer science can be math or science. It cannot be both. So what you would do is that you would choose one. You would choose the math or the science equivalency. You wouldn't get both. And the reason behind that, let's say, and I'm talking statewide here. So locally, you have a lot more options locally. Statewide is, we have a statewide framework for computer science for math. We list the math standards that you have to teach to get that equivalency. There's no science equivalency standards. So there's also a framework for computer science, and we only list science standards. To get into more depth on what a framework looks like, I could have shown a framework, which maybe I should have, but the framework, a teacher is required to teach every standard that's in the framework. So therefore, we at the state, we pick this math or science because the teacher has to teach to those standards to get the equivalent credit. So that's what it would be, one or the other for statewide equivalencies. hopefully I got that, answered that. Okay. Okay, what does this error mean? Okay, well, I don't know exactly where you see the error, but I will tell you the other equivalencies. So I don't know if you remember that I mentioned at first, we only had equivalencies or statewide equivalencies for the ELA, math, and science. But if there's another equivalency, the option was to do the other equivalency not aligned with values 2 through 19. That was the option. So now we've added a whole list of course subjects, content subjects that can be an equivalency. So you might not use that as often. So we have not had art, for example, as an option to report. This is the first year that we will have art as an option. So if somebody was going to do CAD, for example, or the fashion apparel, those are art equivalencies. We didn't have that option in CEDARS. So the school districts had to report it as other. Now we do have the option. So when you go through to look at what subject area that you're going to assign to that equivalency, they're updated now and you should have a lot more choices. And I know, Lisa, do you have anything to say on that, on an error?
No, I would think, Joyce, that might be in a submission exception. So if that's a submission exception and you need help reviewing that, just reach out to me and then we'll take a look at that. And the error message might be able to help us decide what's going on.
Okay. So I'm at Stacy's question.
Okay.
What should we report to?
And I think if I can interrupt for just a moment, Lisa, you and I and Clarice and a few other people had met a few months ago about transcribing when it's determined an equivalency is assigned to a credit. I believe this is probably what Stacy is speaking to, and it can be when, and that's one of the things we recognize, it can be when the course is taken, it can be 3 or 4 years down the road when the student's ready to graduate. And I kind of picture this moving block of courses for students. And if I'm reading this, because we get this a lot, is I can answer, you won't show that 2-for-1 on a transcript because you gather locally what requirements a student has taken and met. That's a lot of local mapping and everything. So what you will show on the transcript, and I'll let Lisa finish because she had all the pieces of this, is how the credit is applied for the student meeting graduation.
Yes. I think I understand the transcripts and transcribing, and I'll say it's a whole nother bag of information on transcription of this equivalency credit. But when we're using, for example, the 2-for-1 policy, again, the student is earning 1 credit and that goes on the transcript. And so there is no way to mark it that I know of in the system. But when you talk about the graduation pathway database, that again would be with Clarice, and that's what Lisa talked about. We would have to work together and see how we can get those connected. Right now, I don't think there is a way, there is not connected. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. And on the high school transcript, what you would show, and we use an example, maybe the student took a robotics class, they took the CTE robotics class, and they'll get a math credit. I don't know if that's an equivalency, I'm throwing it out there. And it's determined at the time of graduation or right before the student graduates, the student needs to use that math equivalency credit. My understanding is you would assign the math state course code and the math name, but the course name could remain what the course was, correct? So you want to show how the credit was used on the transcript, not how it was originally taken. Is that what I believe that's what Stacy is asking about.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I'm gonna talk statewide here. It goes to a statewide RCW that says it must be offered for academic credit. So I just had this case with a school district that called, they had a student that graduated, went to another state college, not in Washington State. And what was on the transcript was the CTE course. But it was a science equivalency. The school counted it as a lab science. But the college, and this goes into the CEDARS, the college didn't see that. So it's really important for CEDARS and probably the NCAA clearinghouse is how it's on the transcript. So it's really important that the academic course title goes on the transcript for that student to get the credit at that college. So, and that would be for, you know, being accepted at that college. So hopefully there's a lot of little gray areas. We're locally controlled state. So OSPI cannot say this is the name of your course. What we're going to be doing is adding a suggested column on the equivalency sheet. So that suggested column, the column would be suggested course title. Say again, I'll go back to residential carpentry. The residential carpentry, the suggested title would be geometry. That's an easy one. There's some that aren't as easy, like Core Plus. I think someone mentioned Core Plus earlier, and we have been working with Core Plus to see how that can be transcribed to get that academic credit. And what that means to the college is accepting that transcript. So hopefully we answered that question. We do have some more work to do on it. You know, we still need to have that column that's suggested. We need to work with the College of Presidents to see what will be accepted at the colleges. So that is an area that we are currently working on. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
So I just want to say in the chat, someone commented, instead of posting it in the Q&A, it says, we added the academic name to our CTE classes to help students with this issue. So ecology and natural resources changed to biology, ecology, and natural resources.
I think that's a great option. I think that's good. Thanks, Nancy. Okay. How are the equivalencies for a district courses determined? Are they based on zip code, or does our CTE department make that determination? So I don't know if you're talking state or local, so I'll kind of go through them both. The statewide equivalencies are the ones that are on that list, and it gives you the zip code. That would be the statewide one. And it's determined locally which ones you're going to use. So you can go through that list that we have on our website and say, okay, we already teach natural resources, but I'm not using that statewide equivalency. But you can pull that equivalency framework off, go to your teacher and say, hey, do you know, can you teach towards this? Could this be our statewide equivalency? So that is statewide, that we determine the zip code and we determine the zip title. The school district still, even though it's a statewide equivalency, determines the title of that class. And that's what goes on the transcript. So now let's go, if it's a local equivalency, I have a toolkit and a workbook that is to develop local equivalencies. So there is our guidance that I give that says this is what you should do for a local equivalency. And it includes, you know, having your CTE teacher. I'll go back. So I taught CTE, I taught business and marketing, and I taught fashion. And I taught a lot of art. And my students needed an art credit. I'm like, okay, I really think this should be an art equivalency. So I worked with our CTE director to see if we could do that. But it's not just because I wanted it to be an art equivalency. So on the local level, we brought in our art lead at the district, an art teacher. And this is another piece that you could be involved in or want to ask questions about is equivalencies. You also can pair. Somebody asked about a teaching certificate, and I said, you know, if they have the V code. But the truth is, I have that V code, but I still reached out. I still reach out to the art teacher, and I still say, can we talk about this? This is a rubric I use. Is this a rubric you could use? Is this, you know, do the walk with, I did a walk in the hallway with all the art that our students did. Same way goes in, I taught personal finance. This is all my personal experiences with equivalencies. So I taught personal finance, but you know, our math teacher that taught bridge to college math, she would come up at least twice a week And she would work with students. So her and I paired together to make sure the students were learning the standards that we had assigned to that course and to that unit. That was all locally done. So when you're asking how is that determined on the local equivalency, it can be, a local equivalency can be determined by the district, but it's a team of people. And I have some resources for that we can share. When reporting this to CEDARS, would it be proper to code the IRC to the equivalent course? Lisa might be able to help on this. On our statewide, I could say on our statewide frameworks, we do talk about the IRCs, but not every equivalency has an IRC. And I don't know on the IRC end, Lisa, is when data is entered in a course, is that where they tag in the IRC?
Right, thanks. So we collect industry recognized certs or IRCs in several places. We get them in the course catalog, student grade history, or non-traditional file T. IRCs can only be attached to a course with a zip code. So if you were typing in an equivalent credit, like a math or science or world language, it would not have that zip code attached. So you could not attach that IRC to that equivalency.
Okay.
It's a challenge, but unfortunately that's the business rules, and CEDARS wouldn't allow you to do that. So you would initially submit, and I don't want to make this assumption, but what we hear qualitatively from a lot of districts is they initially provide the course outcome for the CTE course. Later on, you know, when you're trying to determine how to map that credit, whether you'll use that equivalency credit or the CTE credit for the student, we currently don't have requirements listed that you resubmit how that credit is used to CEDARS, but you want to ensure that it's on the transcript appropriately. And I think we're going to be working on some documentation. But if you did want to resubmit that information to CEDARS, again, you couldn't attach an IRC to that equivalent credit. And that would be a great conversation for later on, Stacy, if you want to contact us. But I know right now you can't do that in CEDARS.
Okay. I'm looking up this document to put in the chat. Okay. I put in the chat right now, statewide course equivalencies, frequently asked questions. And going to try to find the 2-for-1 policy really quick if I can, and then I'll answer the next questions. Well, I'll go to the next question. Okay, last question. When transcribing, if a student took a CTE course, like a residential carpentry, and equivalency is geometry, can we report the original course ID and update state course code? And yes, that is what I would do, Barbara. So the question was, if a student took a CTE course, residential carpentry, and the equivalency credit was geometry, you use the original course ID and update the state course code, and the description or the title of the course would be geometry. I think that was the question, and that's what I would do. Can you explain again where and how the V code is generated? Okay, yes. So if you go to the OSPI website, and at the OSPI website, you'll see options at the top of the screen. I think it's student success. And then if you click that, you'll get a drop-down menu that says career and technical education. So when that is the main page for all CTE information. So the other way, and it should say zip codes. It's CIP codes. Or what I always do is I just go to that little search box and I put SIP code, and I just put the SIP and I get it immediately. So there's two different ways. When you get that chart and you look down on the left-hand side, you'll also see V codes. V codes is the teaching certificate code that when a teacher gets certified or certificated, you get a list of V codes, and those are the courses that you can teach. So that's how you know if a teacher can teach a certain course.
Awesome. That was a host of questions. You went through 20-some questions. It was great.
It makes me think, so the next time I do this, I'll have maybe more slides that can show some more things. I'm happy that you're very interested in the frameworks. I would love to show you a framework next time around and get in more details of what is statewide equivalency, our process, how we determine one, the work that we put into it, and then actually see the framework and how it works, and those kind of things on equivalencies. It's very exciting. I think the most important thing to me is that it is good for students. So that is one thing that makes me happy. I came to OSPI for equivalencies because it was so frustrating that I knew my students were doing the work. I knew they were learning that subject area, but I couldn't give them that credit. And I will tell you that we did a field trip on Core Plus construction, and we went downtown Seattle, and we were up in the high rise, and we were looking at so much math when they were pouring the cement, when they were doing all the things on that high rise, that it wasn't easy. Yeah, that is a math credit. And same with ELA. We took that field trip with Era, and Era was our ELA director. And she came away as like, yes, look how much ELA. And it's technical writing. It may not be, writing a 5-page paper. It's technical writing. So it's skills, it's real life skills that go with that CTE course.
And thank you for explaining that. And I love the passion you have for this for our students. And as you look at that and you talk about the construction and whatnot, you have to know if you're a concrete pour, you have to know what temperature it's at and what the mix is. And I mean, you have to know, and kids don't realize they're applying all of these different metrics to these courses, and being able to recognize for them is very important. And I love how you're laying the groundwork for our participants today. I know we have some CTE folks, but we also have the CEDARS folks. And helping them understand this and map this is just going to result in better data for our students. And I really appreciate you taking time to walk through this. We have one more. Oh, so Marcy said she would love to learn more about frameworks. Yes, please, Lisa Fish. Do we want to pause for maybe another 30 seconds to see if folks have more? Yes, and we would love to have you participate at any point in time and have a second session with you, or maybe do some recordings that we could post.
I would love it. I would love it. And I do have a passion for it. And if anybody would like to learn more about it, you can always call me. We can always get in a Zoom call. I do work groups like we have 20, in the end of May, we're doing a science and CTE equivalency summit where we bring in teachers from the content area, from science, and we bring in like a lot of the ag, the natural resources, but climate, Core Plus, automotive, and we're going to work and try to update the frameworks. So we are continually working on the frameworks. And if anybody has any questions or wants to learn more and work on some of these workshops, that would be wonderful.
Thank you so much. Well, we will pause. Whoops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, the only thing, Lisa, is that, I might have some more documents to share. So maybe I can put that in the newsletter.
That would be wonderful. And we also have our student information monthly newsletter. If you want to provide snippets or information about upcoming meetings or seminars or opportunities, we would love to include that in our newsletter. It goes out to a very broad audience, or links to any other additional items. So the more ways we find to disseminate this great information out to the field, I think is better. We have one more. Yep. Somebody just posted the assignment when I answered that. So we will pause just for a moment. I've put our contact information up. Again, thank you so much for being here today. We get a lot of these questions. Always want to go to our subject matter expert, especially someone that's passionate about this project and the opportunities for our students. We are going to give you, oh, and lots of clapping. We are going to give you a little bit of time back in your day today if we don't have anything, but we'll hang out. Some love and clapping going on there for all your hard work today. We sure appreciate you. We did record this again for those that might have come in a little bit late. Give us a week or two. Our administrative assistant will help us transcribe everything and we'll post it to YouTube. And obviously Lisa will let you know when that's posted also, in case you want to provide a link to this.
Sounds all good, all good.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. I will try and maybe do some screenshots of these before we sign off today. But for now, oh, let's see, we have a chat, but again, people are saying thank you so much. This was a great session. We look forward to getting the webinar and the chat. So kudos to you for an amazing job today. And what we'll do is I think we can call it good. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, for, whoops, one more in the chat. Okay, hold on just a moment. Oh, just saying thank you and very informative. They appreciate it. Love when we get the kudos. So, and they said, thanks, Lisa and Lisa, the duo. Lisa times 2. There we go. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you very much. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to stop the recording and we will end the webinar